building and it doesn't meet the criteria of the village board, does he have to send the guy away or what?
Well, I don't think when we say the question, what kind of business do we want, we're not necessarily writing code for that.
Well, technically you are,
How so?
Technically you are.
How so?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I agree. You can't just dismiss everybody. So there would be a room for that. It's not like we're gonna,
Okay.
we say we want,
As long as we have elbow room for the
Sure,
owners of the properties.
sure. That's
That's
reasonable.
my biggest
Yeah.
thing.
I think a good example is a car dealership at the Chase Bank. I think that happened, was presented a couple weeks ago, and for other reasons it didn't go through because of codes and conditional use and things like that. But I think that's a very good example of what maybe the board should look at is, do we want a car dealership
Exactly.
on the main, well, not, and another one, but on the main drag? So something along that lines of researching the code and developing a plan. And then if the landlord has a tenant that is a car dealership, well, that's not something that could go there.
Grandfathered in.
Well, it wouldn't be grandfathered in if we had a plan, if it was new, if like. That's
Yeah,
what,
if they were
Oh, I
new.
see.
if
Sure,
they
sure,
were,
sure,
if
sure.
they were
Yeah.
trying
That's
to
like
come in.
pre-existing.
If they're pre-existing, that's fine.
Yeah, that's what I missed.
But that's what I think the board is
Yeah.
that kind of the goal
Mhm.
of what the whole thing started with the strategic plan.
Yeah, and again, I wasn't here when that whole thing was started, so I don't know what the exact rationale behind it all was, but I'm guessing that was very much in the same vein of that. I'm guessing that's where these discussions came from. And yeah, I think that's a really great thing to look at. And again, taking some of those more questionable uses and maybe not, again, not necessarily like out, prohibiting them altogether, but if putting it into the conditional use category, where it would still be allowed to an extent, but we would have the ability to put conditions on it saying, okay, if you want to put this here, you have to give us this, 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 and this, before, it would be allowed. So again, being able to use that, to be a little bit more strict where they can still have a tenant, but that tenant would have to provide us with some extra stuff, to be able to move forward with that.
A bit of low hanging fruit on code would be, and we did see it in the responses that you included in the packet. People said that that Hampton Avenue businesses shouldn't be allowed to use their business for strictly storage. So that's something that could be, I would think that kind of wording would be
Yeah, and
pretty easy to get into the code. So
Oh
that
yeah,
if somebody wants you to buy it because it's available, then you just store it. What a waste of a storefront, at least from my advantage,
Yeah, and,
So
and
that'd
that
be-
that definitely can be added if that's the will of the board.
There again, that's what I'm trying to say. You're pigeonholing somebody. If they have enough money to buy a building and want to use it as storage, and they want to tar paper the front of the building or paper the windows so you can't see in, what business is it of ours? We cannot legally say you cannot have a storage
we
room.
can.
I don't think so.
And
I don't
that's
think so.
exactly what I was gonna say, is we don't want Hampton Avenue to become
I understand it.
blocked. I think by all means, we could put something in place to say, you have to have your business presentable. And that's what we could look at.
That, and again, with the way that the zoning districts are written out, you can't have a manufacturing facility in a residential property, like in a residential district. So we do have the districts are districts because we segregate out what we allow and what we don't. We allow storage in the M1 district. We can though, however, not allow it in a business district, because again, just because somebody buys a building doesn't necessarily say that we have to let them use it how they want to. So if we write it into the code that we don't want storage in the business district, but in the commercial, or I should say in the industrial district, that's allowed, that is something that we can do. We can govern that. But what I don't want to get into is prohibiting something that is like a business type thing, and saying you cannot have this altogether anywhere in the village.
Well, we'll talk about individual things like that as we kind of comb through this. But to this point, and I think we talked about this last time, there was a section in Germantown that they wrote code that along so and such a strip, everything had to have a German theme.
Correct.
So it can be done if that's what the vision of what the village wants to accomplish. So if somebody wanted to buy something and store it there, they couldn't do that because it didn't
So
have.
all
anything.
businesses must have an attractive storefront.
Yeah, exactly. And what is an
Well, and
attractive
when it comes
storefront?
to storage, I mean, that would be a particular item that we would articulate in that section of the code.
And I would honestly, if somebody came to me and I said, here's an occupancy, my use is storage and it's going to be in the business district, I would not allow that to happen because that's not a permitted use
Right. So
in the
building board
business
has to
district
deny it.
already. So if somebody were to come to me and say, this is what I want to do, I want to use it as storage, I would turn them away before they even really put forward the occupancy permit, because again, that's not in the permitted use. It's in the M1, it is a permitted use. You can have storage. So we have businesses that store their materials and their trucks and whatnot and in the M1 district, but not in the B1. Because again, that's how,
What's that one? Realty construction? Nice looking.
Mhm.
You know, look through the window, it
Yep.
looks fantastic.
Mhm.
Then we've got that, what I think at one time was a bank building on the corner. Across from the gas station there, across from Butler Auto.
Yeah.
It's been,
The
like,
dentist place,
Yes.
Yeah.
was it a dentist place?
Yeah.
I know, that beautiful building, and I remember talking to Kayla about that. That owner's been reached out to numerous times,
He
and
doesn't want to part
know.
with it.
he's just using it strictly for storage too. It's just filled with all kinds of garbage, I guess, but.
Yeah, but can you see into the garbage? No, you cannot see into the garbage.
No,
No, it's just a waste of a
Don't get-
property. but-
It's
Don't
it's
get
his
pet started.
property.
I mean, and it's an
Yeah, I
old,
know.
I think it's a historic building.
So
I still
Ben,
think we need to address, kind of the backtrack here is getting the community involved, right? We talk about all these things that, want to make it look good and I'm 100% behind all that, right? I said when I first started this, when I first appeared before the board, before I was appointed, that one of my goals was to bring people to these meetings. And I feel like that's what we should have here. We should have these people and how do we do that, right? So I think that should be part of our talks. How we attract the citizens to these chairs and to work with us to make it better. We want it better. What do we got to do? How do we break the cycle of what has been, right? And how it got there doesn't really matter at this point, but what can we do as a board to bring people to the seats and to want to, again, help out with whatever functions are going on and sit on some of these boards to give us the perspective of someone living in the community as well. So I think we need to really think about that too. It should be on the upper part of some of our lists here that we have.
Yeah, and I mean, even that specific question could be an agenda item where we just, we prepare in advance and we come together and just talk about that.
Because the board I listened tonight we can never get anybody, we can never get anybody, we can never get anybody. And I feel that after so much of that, they get beat down, right? And then there's like, well, we do all these things and no one helps us with it. So what do we got to do? What can we do? I think we need to talk about that as a board.
I agree.
in all fairness, we have come a long way. I mean, I look at some of the stuff here.
Yeah, and I'm not saying,
Yeah,
I'm not saying at
right,
all,
I
like,
know, I know.
it's all baby steps. But what I've heard, oh, no one ever comes and, we can't get anybody. And it starts to feel like disappointment, like, why should we try anymore? I don't want us to fall into that, any of us, because we all are up here because we care, right? How do we get these people here to let them know that we do want to hear from them, that we do want to take their, whatever they're looking to have done, right? Or, their suggestions or whatever it may be. We need to find that.
Well, the best we ever had was the chicken dispute. I mean, it was both. I mean, standing room only.
Right.
For chickens.
Yeah.
So-
which is great. Right. I mean,
But I'm just saying,
right. Well, I know I'm part of that, right? Of big things that happen to it. That's when you see people and then it's gone. How do we keep that? How do we keep people still coming and still, or, getting them to our Facebook page? and to see what's going on, because there's questions that are made on other sites that could be answered just by going to our village page. So
So we'll have to rumor that we're gonna take away their chick.
There you go.
there it is. I mean, but that's it. I mean, it's just, I think we need to really put that towards the top.
Yeah, and I think the point is good, and that, again, we don't need to solve for it now.
No, I mean,
but,
we're not going,
but-
everything's a
but
baby
that-
step.
That definitely could be a point of focus as the discussions, continue on.
Correct. And my goal is to keep this ball rolling, like probably on the first agenda of the month, have a topic related to this. So then we can kind of keep this in the forefront, because something that I don't want to have happen is what happened before, where we talk about it and then it goes away. I want to keep this going and keep these discussions happening, because I want people to know whether, they're here or they start to come here, they start to come to the meetings and they wonder, oh, what did you guys talk about in the past? They want to have that discussion, because I think that that's how you make the community better, is you keep on having these hard discussions and try to hammer this stuff out.
But also not, just because we don't hear from people, I don't always think that's a bad thing. That kind of says we're maybe doing things the right way. We will know when people are
Yeah, I think in some respects, yes. I think in some respects, I think
Hopefully you're right.
there might be people though that, again, from past interactions or just general complacency or skepticism towards local government, don't feel like their voices could be heard or it's worth sharing. So I want to, again, if anybody is listening out there or anybody in the audience that, leaves today, just let people know that they can come and talk to me whenever they want. I'm here 9 hours a day. And
But to your point, Ben, I think you're correct. People think like my voice isn't heard, but was it 2 meetings ago when we first kind of brought this up? We had a young lady in here that owned a couple businesses, and she stood up and talked to us. And I think she had a different perspective after she left, like, whoa, well, this wasn't what I thought it was. And they listened to what I had to say and what my feelings were about what was happening. So, that's part twofold, right? That's what we got to get out of.
There's definitely some people are busy. They're raising their families, so you get that, right? So we've all either been there or are there. So we're elected to do the job so that they don't have to. So there's kind of that viewpoint. But obviously there's people have desire for certain things, which is shown in the information. So we can move forward and start addressing the things, we'll just address them as we are able and try to, drill down on them and identify them and come up with some answers.
I think one of the problems you're not getting people in here is, some people aren't going to like this, is we keep on moving our meetings earlier and earlier. People that have families are sitting down to dinner at 5, 5:30, 6 o'clock. They're not going to drop everything to come to the village board meeting unless it's something that they really want to talk about.
They weren't
We
coming
used to
at
have-
7.
Bill,
Sure.
Bill, what was our time at meetings? Didn't we have it at 8 o'clock?
Yeah, we
In the very
originally, there
beginning?
was back in 8
Yeah.
o'clock.
I would not vote for that.
I'm with
But
you.
they also went till 2 in the morning.
I
wouldn't vote for that either.
A little younger back then. 9 o'clock was at our bedtime.
So a point taken, but again,
No,
that's
see,
something
I
that can be
mean-
part of that other discussion.
Right.
Yeah, no, I think it does play into it. Timing and work. People work till 5, they don't get home till 5:30, 5:45, and they have kids, right? So I mean, it's something to address.
Yeah, and again, people, we have these recorded on our YouTube page. We have at the bottom of our newsletter, we have the link to it. And also, if people want to email in comments, concerns as part of the public comment section, they can't make it here, they can always email me. They can always send an email in, and I can read it into the record if they want to voice their opinion on
Are
something.
people watching?
I think it's just the trustee.
Brad?
I think that we were up to 4 at one point.
But I could probably, I'll make a bet with anybody here that there's probably like 2% of the population here in the village that even knows that this is put on YouTube.
Which goes to the next point I was going to make. Some of the messaging from the village could be something that could bring that awareness to people. And again, that's a solve for another discussion, but whether through Facebook or posters or all of it, even just us, as in our discussions, when we're at, the pancake breakfast, with the Easter bunny coming up, to utilize those opportunities to let people know how this all works and the input that's available to them. So I mean, there's,
Yeah, and that's
there's
the
not
reason
one
why I
simple
go to these
answer
things
that,
too.
but those are the kinds of things that we can do.
Yeah,
and-
people
and
approach me all the
represent
time
a
at those at those
consistent
things.
Messaging, a narrative, from the village to accomplish some things.
If you had, I mean, if we were getting a lot of people saying, hey, I want to come at 7, but your meeting's at 6. If we were getting those complaints, we most certainly can entertain it and look at it, but we don't have that complaint.
Have we asked?
And like I said, my messaging can definitely, increase when it comes to that. But again, it's one of those things of, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll have a deputy clerk in the shotgun here within the next week. But I think that, we have opportunities to do that. But again, it's one of those things where I just, again, want to remind the board, there's 8 hours in a day. I spend 9 hours here, and I work on the weekends and at night sometimes to get stuff done. So there's only so much that I can do, and so much that Aaron can do in the deputy clerk. So I just want to put that out there. But I'm definitely all in favor of doing what we can.
Do you know how many people look at the village website?
We do have analytics. The last time I have not checked those analytics recently, but when we ran it the last time, it wasn't that much. It's I think that people don't necessarily check the website, and I'm not the greatest at keeping that as up to date as I could, but it's not a ton of traffic.
And that also goes hand in hand with that owners are moving out and it's more tenants. That was from the census that I think we're at 45% tenants or I'm not, the owner occupied homes are less and less. So that's kind of consistent, I think, with the data. Less people are involved. We know that.
Rental things is just something I'd like to personally see if it's feasible to address as well. I have some thoughts and ideas on that for a later discussion. But I think that part of our demographic speaks to why people don't come. Renters don't have the buy-in and the ownership that property owners do. So that's somewhat reflected in what we're all, dealing with here.
All right, Ben, did you need any more input on that for that right now, or you're good on that?
Aaron's been taking my notes, so I think that we have at least, I know I have two top areas to be focusing on.
Perfect. Does anyone else want to comment on that, or do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Motion's been
The
made.
one
and-
time he talks in there,
He wants off.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
On opposition, say nay. Motion passes. We're adjourned 6:52, and that was
who's
Brad.
the
and
second on that?
Bill.
Bill, okay.
Thank you.